Welcome back to my 2020 Halloween Spooktackular, guys. Hope you guys are having a lot of fun with this. The Birds was released in 1963 and is directed by Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense himself. Melanie travels to Bodega Bay after having a chance run-in with a lawyer named Mitch, who was at her pet store buying lovebirds for his 11-year-old daughter Kathy's birthday. When he walks out without buying them, she decides to bring them to his farm in Bodega Bay, except when she gets there, these birds randomly start attacking for unexplained reasons. Now, to be quite honest with you, I am not a huge fan of Hitchcock. I love Psycho. Psycho is without a doubt a classic, but I could never get into movies like Rear Window, North by Northwest, Vertigo. They just didn't grab my attention. From the moment this movie began, from the opening frame to the final shot of the movie, this movie hooked me. The Birds is my favorite Hitchcock movie, and yes, I think this is on par or better than Psycho. This movie is so elegant and brilliant in how suspenseful it is. There is a reason Alfred Hitchcock is the master of suspense. The thing that makes The Birds so suspenseful and terrifying is the fact that these aren't supernatural entities. These aren't ghosts. This isn't a haunted house or anything. These are actual creatures that are on the planet. Creatures that sometimes we interact with. Creatures that are in our everyday lives, that we see, animals that we see every day. It makes it that much more terrifying when it's more real, when it's more raw, in the moment, in your face. There's just a certain craft that is there, certain sense of fear when you are looking at something that could actually happen, as opposed to a haunted house or ghosts or demonic possession. Hitchcock is able to strike fear into every viewer and will probably make every viewer hate birds for the rest of their goddamn lives. God damn it, Hitchcock. He is so brilliant. The thing that I love about The Birds is that these birds attack, and then there's always that little lull. They always stop attacking, and then they just start attacking people again for no reason. It's a really on and off situation with these bird attacks. It makes it that much more terrifying, as well as some of the imagery that Hitchcock puts into your mind. Just flocks and flocks of birds perched on trees, rooftops, cars, railings, houses, you name it. Them pecking at somebody's hand, or them pecking at the door. There's a scene where someone walks into a room and finds a dead body with its eyes gouged out. Intense shit, guys, especially for 1963. Things like that. Visual elements that Hitchcock throws on the screen instantly make this a lot more scary than it actually seems like the movie is. Because at first glance, you will think that The Birds is more or less harmless. There's a bird attack that happens about a half hour into the movie, but when it's a flock of birds, it doesn't really happen till close to an hour. So almost at the halfway mark of the movie is when everything really starts to go to shit. It's gonna feel like it's a lot of talking at first. It's gonna feel very slow-paced, but I never felt that. And I feel like with other Hitchcock movies, I feel that. Before I knew it, I was an hour into this movie. I looked at the timestamp and I was like, I've already seen this much of the movie? There's only this much left? Whereas if I had watched something like Vertigo or North by Northwest, if I felt like I had watched 55 minutes of the movie, the timestamp would only say like 27 minutes or so. This felt like a fast-paced psychological thriller or psychological horror. Never a dull moment in this movie at all. I love the intrigue and mysteriousness behind these bird attacks as well. These bird attacks, why they're doing this, are actually never explained, but there's a couple of interpretations you could have. And there's a conversation that is brought up later in the film in a restaurant, where one of the citizens of Bodega Bay calls out the main character, Melanie, for bringing this evil upon them, because these bird attacks did not start until she arrived in Bodega Bay, which got me thinking at that moment, you know what? She's right. So I started thinking in my head and if you watch this movie, read into that scene however you like, but I just started thinking in my head, maybe Melanie just has this hidden evil within her that is just this invisible force that whenever she is around these birds just go berserk and start attacking people. Maybe she brought an invisible evil force into Bodega Bay and it just made all the birds go crazy. I don't know. I could be reading too far into that. It's definitely hinted at that maybe she is the one that is the reason for these attacks, but it's never explained why these attacks happen. That's me probably overanalyzing it. That's probably stuff you will analyze in a film class. Once that was said, it entered my mind that yes, these bird attacks started happening once she showed up in Bodega Bay, and they didn't stop happening. The only time they stopped happening is when the birds peck at her at the end in the final sequence of the movie, and it's almost like she's dead and she's badly injured, and Mitch and his family are taking her to a hospital in San Francisco, and you see all of the birds spread out across the farmhouse on trees, railings, rooftops, and they're not attacking them. It kind of opens up some interpretation as to how these attacks are actually happening, which when a movie opens up conversations like that, I love that about movies. That means a movie is doing its job, it's getting people talking about it, it's getting people to have different interpretations as to what actually may be going on. Hitchcock is such a master too when it comes to framing his shots. There are shots in this movie that you just don't see anymore. There are shots in this movie where everything that has to be in frame is going to be in frame at that second, and when multiple characters are talking, it doesn't cut from character to character. There's no close-ups of these characters talking. There's no image of their head from here to here in the frame. It's everything you need to see. It's everything you need to see in a beautiful wide. Everybody is perfectly centered in the frame. Hitchcock is brilliant. He places everything that is integral to the scene in the frame at stage center. The first bird attack also gets you because you hear these kids screaming, and then the sound mixing is so well edited into the actual screams of the birds as well. It's not very clear as to if the children are screaming or if the birds are actually screaming. It's all brilliant, man. It ratchets up the tension. It offers lots of more suspense. There's prolonged sequences where you think something is going to happen, and it turns out it doesn't, only for that sequence to have an unexpected twist happen. Hitchcock is brilliant. This is definitely a movie that I think needs to get talked about more in terms of Hitchcock's filmography. I think that this is kind of the one that flies under the radar. Everybody's going to talk about Rear Window. Everybody's going to talk about Vertigo. Everybody's going to talk about Psycho, North by Northwest. But The Birds just kind of goes under the radar, which is a shame because I think it's just as good as Psycho. I'm going to give The Birds an A+. Not really scary in the sense as you would think it would be scary, where it's something that would actually scare your pants off, but when you actually think about the concept behind this movie, the fact that there's no ghosts or haunted house or supernatural entity or anything, and it's just real animals that we interact with at times in life, that's the terror of the movie. That's what makes the movie scary to a lot of people. And Hitchcock just does a brilliant job at that. So what did you guys think of The Birds if you have seen The Birds? Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.